talk about something that's going to probably piss off half of the men dating overseas, but it needs to be said. I've been getting these questions quite often, actually, since I've been overseas. And there's this narrative that's floating around, and this is why it's happening, that if you just become a digital nomad, if you just pack up your laptop, go somewhere like Thailand or Colombia or Bali, that suddenly, for whatever reason, and we all know why, you're going to be swimming in high quality feminine women that aren't corrupted by the Western values, Western feminism, and your dating life is going to be solved forever. At least that's the promise. So we have to address that there's truth to that, of course. There's a reason that guys are doing it, but there's also a massive fucking blind spot that nobody talks about because it ruins the fantasy that they're selling you. So I'm going to break this one down. And this is like, I guess you could call it the paradox of the digital nomad / dating of a passport bro, whatever, any term you want to use, expat, doesn't matter. The good, the bad, the ugly of this stuff, because what you're going to face when you land in whatever this paradise that you think is waiting for you, you have to be aware of some things. And first, we'll get into the obvious benefits, right? Because they are real. And I'm not going to pretend they don't exist, of course. Your dollar goes further. That's number one. Everything is much cheaper, like way further, right? You're making Western income while living in a place where a nice dinner could cost you something like $10 and rent could be $500 a month, if not less. So you have disposable income that you never had back home, and you can actually take a woman out on a date without calculating if you can afford the rent, right? So you get to dress better, you get to live in a nicer place, you can present yourself better and more successful than you actually are by, say, quote, Western standards. That's true. The women are also way more feminine on average, more traditional in their behavior, even if it's not always genuine. They're not walking around with crazy ass blue hair screaming about the patriarchy. They all know how to cook for the most part. They dress feminine by nature. They're not 200-pound fucking ogres claiming it's healthy and shit. And the dating apps aren't completely destroyed by hypergamy, the way they are in the West, at least. So you can actually get matches and dates without being like a male model. So this is what pretty much a lot of guys report. And there's more of them, actually. You get more access because you're in countries where the gender ratio isn't completely fucked either. So where the women aren't actually pursuing like the top 10% or even the 1% man, you know, where essentially being a Western guy who's got his shit together means something. So yeah, from a pure numbers and I would say like access perspective, your dating market will go up, sometimes dramatically up, depending on what market from the West you're coming from. Imagine something stupid like LA or New York or Miami, some absolute shithole for dating. So this is all real, and this is why guys do this. And totally, I get it. Every other guy gets it. No need to explain that part. But here's where the paradox kicks in, and this is what nobody wants to admit, because it will destroy the whole fucking fantasy. So while your surface level dating market value will go up, the quality and authenticity of what you're actually accessing goes down in ways that aren't immediately obvious. And by the time you figure this out, you're probably already going to waste years, if not thousands of dollars on women who are never really into you. So this is like a trap that a lot of guys ask how to avoid. You have to understand, you think you're getting access to better women, but what you're actually getting access to is women who specifically target foreigners. And there's a massive difference between those two things. And most guys don't understand until it's too late. This is the part that sucks. The women who are most available to you, the ones who speak English and are on the dating apps and are comfortable dating foreigners, they're not actually representative of the actual local culture. They're a specific subset of women who figured out that foreign men are on like economic opportunity. And they got really fucking good at playing the game. And I mean really good. And I'm not saying that they're all scammers or prostitutes, but what I am saying is they made a calculated decision that dating foreigners is advantageous. And you need to understand what that means for your position in the relationship and what it means, whether her attraction to you is even real at all. So let me be really clear about what this looks like in practice, because it's really subtle and most guys don't see it until it's absolutely too late. Like I said, they're already emotionally invested, sunk cost fallacy. They feel like they can't leave. They put in too much. They can't go back to jerking it with their hand. So they'll stay in this stuff. She could be sweet. All right. She probably is sweet. She cooks. She's super feminine. She's very traditional, doesn't argue. Seems like everything Western women aren't. And you're probably thinking like, fuck, dude, I hit the jackpot. Finally, you found a woman who appreciates you, right? Isn't corrupted by feminism. Everything sounds perfect. But slowly the requests start, right? Her mom is sick. She needs money for treatment. Her brother needs help with school fees. Her family business is struggling and just needs a small loan. And because you're making Western money and she's been good to you, you help out. You're the man, you're the provider, right? This is what men do. No? That's what we're all told. Except the requests never stop. They escalate. And then you start realizing you're in a relationship that's based, or I should say that's not even based on genuine attraction or compatibility. It's based on economic utility. And the second the utility disappears, so does she. Because she was never actually into you. She was never actually attracted to you. She was attracted to what you could, or at least what you represented. Or she's angling from marriage day one. Not because she wants to build a life with you specifically, but marriage to a Westerner is a ticket to a better life. It's a visa and it has access, right? Think about it, to a first world country. It's economic security for her and her entire family. And you're the vehicle for that, right? You're not the person she loves. You're just the means to an end. And here's the really fucked up part, guys, that guys hate hearing. But it needs to be said, dude. If you're really red pill about this, you can't even blame her for it. From her perspective, right, she's making a rational decision. She's in a country where the average salary is like fucking $300 a month, if that. And you're making $5K, maybe more sometimes, from your laptop at a fucking cafe, like these digital nomads. Of course, she sees you as an economic opportunity. That's just basic incentive structure. She'd be stupid not to leverage that advantage. Think about it. The paradox is that the same factors that increase your dating market value, your Western income, your passport, also ensure that you can never fully trust the attraction. You can never know if she wants you or what you represent. And that uncertainty poisons everything for a lot of guys. Back home, think about it. You might have struggled to get dates, but at least the women or the woman that you were with was with you. You knew it wasn't because you were her fucking ticket to a green card. You knew that she had other options and she chose to stay anyway. So there's some baseline, at least, genuine attraction, because it's the economic disparity wasn't so massive. You're not bringing a girl's family out of poverty. You understand? Just like, oh yeah, I kind of like this guy. Okay, we'll date. Even if it turns out to be sour, at least they were more genuine than some of the guys getting targeted overseas. And overseas, you have more options, but every single one comes with the question mark I told you about. Is this real? You're probably thinking to yourself, or am I the economic opportunity that's available to her that she found maybe this month? And that question will eat at you. And if you try to ignore it, especially, it will bury deep. So, and the local women who aren't specifically targeting foreigners, the actual high quality traditional women that you think you're going to find, they're not accessible to you. And this is the part that's going to sting the most. And the guys, I already know what the guys are going to say. Yeah, right. My woman's high quality. Just hear me out for a second, because this is a brutal aspect of this that guys aren't accepting. But we know, especially if you live there, especially if you talk to locals, you have to accept this. The same way the women refuse to swallow the red pill, you're going to have to swallow this part too. Those high quality women, the real traditional, they're not on dating apps. They're not hanging out in any expat bars or cafes. They're living their lives within those local communities, dating local men. And they're not interested in a foreigner who doesn't speak the language, doesn't understand the culture, and is probably going to leave in 6 months anyway. So you end up dating from a pool of women who are available to foreigners, which by definition is filtered and somewhat artificial dating market from the get-go. Because the women who make themselves available to foreign men are doing so for specific reasons. And those reasons are usually economic, or they're specifically seeking a way out of their country, right? The traditional submissive woman that you're imagining in your head before you're traveling, the one who's real feminine and loyal, and she's not corrupted by modern values, feminism, all that stuff. She's not waiting for you at some beach bar in Phuket. She's at home with her family, following the traditional values, which means dating within her community and following her father's guidance about who she marries. Then there's the other guys, right? Because you're not the only one who figured out this strategy. You're competing with every other Western guy who moved there for the same exact reason. And a lot of them are fucking losers, let's be honest. Passport losers, pookies, whatever name they give them today. They actually have a name. Locals have a name for these guys. Losers back home, something like that is what they call it. Guys who couldn't get laid in the West, so they moved to Southeast Asia to play tutorial mode, essentially. You got broke English teachers living in studio fucking apartments, sex tourists who treat the whole country like a brothel. And now every local woman associates Western men with this type of person. So your value is simultaneously higher because you are Westerner and lower because you're associated with every other degenerate Western guy who came before you. And the women who are experienced with foreign men, the ones who are actually available and accessible to you, they've learned how to play the game. They know exactly what to say, how to act to extract the maximum value, right? Maximum value from you while giving the minimum commitment, because they've done this before with other foreign guys, most likely. You're not special. You're just the current one. And when you're gone, there'll be another one. So another red flag for you guys is, does she date foreigners? And most likely if she's talking to you, the answer is already yes. So you think you're the one gaming the system, but the system's actually gaming you. And the whole setup is designed to separate you from your money while giving you just enough validation and feminine energy to keep you hooked. And that's what the game is right there, plain and cold. Now let's talk about what this does to your actual relationship prospects long term, because the digital nomad lifestyle is fundamentally incompatible with building something real. Same with the passport bros. They're both transient people. You're moving every few months. Maybe you stay a little longer. It doesn't matter. You're not putting down roots. You're not building the community. And you're not creating any stability that's required for the serious relationship. So even if you find a woman who's genuine, even if the attraction is real, for example, the relationship has an expiration date built into it because you're leaving. You're always leaving. So you end up in this cycle of short-term relationships with women who know that you are temporary, which incentivizes them to extract value quickly, which enforces the transactional nature of everything, which prevents anything real from developing. And you just tell yourself that you're winning because you're dating beautiful women for cheap, for example. But you're actually stuck in this endless loop of shallow connections that goes nowhere. And if you do decide to settle down with one of these women, if you bring her back to the West or stay in her home country permanently, now you're dealing with a whole different set of problems. Is she going to stay feminine and submissive when she has access to Western divorce courts? Or is the mask going to come off finally, the moment she gets the green card, and realize that she could just take half your shit and you can't do anything about it? All right? Is her family going to bleed you dry now that you're permanently accessible and they know that you have the resources? Or is she going to resent you for taking her away from her family and make your life miserable until you agree to send them money every month? This is a story that happens to a lot of guys, right? The very thing that made the relationship possible, the economic status, right? And the status in general, the differential of that becomes the thing that makes it unstable long-term, because you built the whole relationship on a foundation of her needing what you have rather than actually wanting you. So again, your options are increasing, but your ability to trust those options decrease. Your spending power increases, but so does the number of people trying to extract value from you. And your access to feminine women also increases. There's a lot of them, but your access to the genuine attraction decreases. It's such a mindfuck. The entire structure of the lifestyle is designed for short-term consumption, not long-term building. So then you have the traditional high-class women in these countries, right? The actual quality women you're supposedly there to find. This is a brutal one. It's going to hurt feelings. They have racial and cultural preferences, and those preferences don't include you. A genuinely, and I mean genuinely traditional woman from a good family wants to date within her culture and within her race. That's what traditional actually means. It means following the values and the structures that our community has maintained for generations. And those structures don't involve dating some random white guy or black guy or whoever, Western guy, who showed up with a fucking laptop in Thailand or wherever else in Southeast Asia, in the Philippines. Her father has expectations. Her family has expectations. And if she's from a higher class background, those expectations are even stronger because they have more to lose by her dating outside of her community. The father is looking for a son-in-law, for example, who shares the cultural values the family has, who speaks their language, who understands their traditions. who can integrate into their family structure, and who comes from a family with comparable social standing. That's super important. And you're a foreigner, and you check exactly none of those boxes. Do you understand? The family will start pressuring her to date within her race and culture, especially, and you have to understand this, if they're higher class, because, and this is, I'm telling you, this will hurt your feelings. Marrying out is seen as marrying down, regardless of how much money you make, because you're not a part of their community and you never will be. So the quote, high class traditional women, the ones with options and family support and good reputations, they're dating within their community because that's what their families expect them to do. And that's what traditional values actually dictate. The women who are open to dating foreigners, the ones who are willing to go against family pressure and cultural expectations, they're predominantly lower class women. And they're open to it because you represent a meal ticket, because you're their economic escape route from poverty. I can already sense blood pressure rising, right? It's not because they find you attractive, not because they share your values, not because they want to build a life with you specifically. Understand? It's because dating a foreigner with money means the best shot at life. I'm just being real. And this creates a brutal question that most guys don't even want to ask themselves. But you have to be honest. Did you really retool your entire life, move to a foreign country, learn a new culture or attempt to, just to date low-class women who see you as an ATM? Is that the trade that you wanted to make? Giving up your community, your culture, and your language, your family back home, right? To access women who are with you for economic reasons rather than genuine attraction? Because if you're being honest with yourself, that's actually what most guys are doing. You're not accessing high-quality traditional women. You're accessing poor women who need what you have. And there's a massive fucking difference between those two things. Now, look, I'm not saying all of this shit to be a doomer or to make you feel hopeless. I'm saying this so you understand the actual game you're playing and you don't delude yourself about what you're going to get into when you go overseas. The guys, or I should say, there are guys who make this shit work, but they fall into very specific categories that most men listening to this don't fit into. And you need to be brutally honest with yourself about which category you're in. Okay? The only way you get genuine attraction from a high-class traditional woman in these countries is if you're genuinely attractive, period. Meaning that you were getting women in the West also, and you had no problem. You just hated the values. They didn't make good wives or mothers for your children, and that's what you thought, and so you left. If you're a legitimately, quote, high value, if we even have to use that word, high value man who has options everywhere, who is successful with women back home, who's in great shape, has strong social skills, carries himself with confidence, you know, that guy, the top percenter. And you're specifically choosing to pursue traditional women in other cultures because, you know, Western women have become insufferable feminists who they can't cook, they won't submit, then yes, fine. You might have a shot with a high-class woman because your value transcends the cultural boundaries. That's one way you make this work. When you're genuinely attractive, you know, when women back home are already choosing you over other men, when your dating market value is high in a competitive Western market, then moving to a traditional culture does give you access to better quality women who share your values. That's a legitimate strategic move. Or if you have generational wealth, and this one is how you transcend those traditional barriers the easiest. If you're coming from serious money, and we're talking serious, where your family name means something, where you can provide a lifestyle that elevates her and her entire family's social standing, then you can break through those cultural and racial barriers. Because the economic differential, again, is so massive that it overrides the family's preferences for same race, same culture marriage. When you're talking about real wealth, not just making $5K a month from your laptop, but actual fuck you money, properties, investments, family businesses, the kind of wealth that changes generations, then yeah, traditional families will make exceptions because marrying their daughter to you is a massive upgrade in every measurable way possible. But here's the thing that most guys need to hear and accept. If you're making an average salary, if you're on a pension, if you're a digital nomad pulling in 3 to 5K a month, which sounds good in developing countries, but you're middle class back home at best. You're not in either of those categories. You don't have generational wealth that makes families overlook cultural preferences. And if you couldn't get quality women back home to be interested in you, then you're not genuinely attractive enough to transcend cultural boundaries either. What you have in reality is temporary purchasing power that makes you attractive to poor women who need the economic security. And that's a fundamentally different dynamic than genuine attraction. And you need to understand that difference, or know the difference very well before you start to invest all those years and thousands of dollars in a relationship built on a foundation that will crumble the moment that economic advantage disappears for you. And it happens all the time. Ask the guys who have traveled, who maybe have lived overseas for a while, and they saw how these relationships with Westerners crumble, right? Again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not telling you this to crush your dreams or make you give up and think like it's not possible. I'm just telling this so you don't fool yourself into thinking that you're going to get something you're not. Because everybody's getting sold bullshit out here today. So you don't move overseas expecting to find a traditional high-class wife and you end up with some low-class woman who's fucking using you as an economic stepping stone. If you go into this with your eyes open, if you understand that all the women available to you are available for economic reasons and you're okay with that, that trade is great for you. If you accept the traditional, or I should say not traditional, transactional nature, and then you plan accordingly, fine, bro. By all means, go for it. You can make it work on those terms. Not a problem. Some guys don't care. They accept that. That's the point. They want a transactional relationship. They're not interested in anything deeper. They don't believe in love and all that stuff. Then great. My heart to you. Do as you wish. But if you're going in there, right, thinking your $4K a month remote job makes you wealthy enough to attract high-class women, or thinking that just, being Western is enough to get genuine attraction from those quality women, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and financial exploitation. The women who are available to you as a digital nomad or a passport bro, the ones who are accessible and interested in dating for men, they're available for a reason. You have to ask yourself. And that reason is usually that local men with options don't want them. And that's another brutal one that hurts too. Maybe she's got a reputation in her community. Maybe she's older and desperate. Maybe she's got kids from previous relationships, probably with other foreigners or locals. You've seen how many foreigners are dating single mothers. It's like an epidemic. Maybe she's known as the girl who chases foreigners for money. But whatever the reason, if she's making herself available to you, there is a reason she's not dating within her culture. You have to ask yourself why. So high-class traditional women date within their race and their culture because that's what traditional means. Low-class women are more open to the foreigners because of the economic need overrides a preference. And if you're relying on the fact that you're Western, you have money to get dates, you're not dating high-quality women. That's the paradox. You're dating desperate women. You understand? So this is the dating market value calculation that changes. But the underlying dynamics, they don't. Women everywhere are hypergamous. Everywhere. They are attracted to resources and to status. That changes. Or I should say, that doesn't change no matter where you go. Whether you're a foreigner in a developing country, a developed country, wherever you go, it doesn't matter. And when you are in these developing countries, you're walking around with a neon sign that says economic opportunity. And it's flashing above your head nonstop. You could spot you out of the crowd. You don't look like them. You're not going to escape hypergamy. You're just playing it on easy mode where the economic differentials are so large that even average Western guys can compete. But that doesn't mean the women are actually attracted to you. It just means that they're attracted to what you could provide, which again, fine for some, not for others. But the moment you can't provide it at all, income drops, or you lose your job, or you run out of money, she's gone, bro. Because the attraction was never real in the first place. It was transactional. And you're just too desperate for female validation to see it. So be honest with yourself about what you're actually doing and what you're actually getting. Because there's nothing wrong with leveraging your advantages, I told you, and enjoying a better dating market. But don't confuse that with finding something real or with better options, more options, right? And don't confuse more options as better options. That's a better way to put it, right? Or women that are just nice to you because they could be nice to you because you have money. right? And that doesn't mean she'll stick around once the money disappears. People are nice to you just to get your cash, okay? It doesn't mean she's genuinely nice. I'm trying to avoid guys to make the mistake where they'll end up like the stories we heard. Well, their guys will like figure this out years too late after they already invested emotionally, bought property, built a house for the woman, right? And they invested emotionally and financially deep into a relationship built on a foundation of economic dependency. And it's just disguised as traditional femininity. And by then, the bitterness will set in, and they'll either double down and trap themselves forever on this delusion, or they come back home realizing they wasted years chasing a fantasy that was never real to begin with. That's just what I wanted to say about this whole passport bro, digital nomad, dating overseas. It's gotten so popular and so cheap to travel that you just save a little bit of money, you go overseas, and the attention, it's overwhelming. You're desperate for some love, from attention. Guys just forget how to act. They start to think with the man downstairs, and you'll get an explosion of videos saying, it's not it, it's a scam, bar girl did this. It's like, I just laid it out for you, hopefully in a succinct manner. This is about as short as I can do it with as much detail as possible in one video. So let me know what you guys think. Guys that are living overseas, people that have dated predominantly foreign women overseas. There's another aspect too, by the way, when this is more for the luckiest of them all. You live in the United States and you met a first generation foreigner that also moved there and lives there. And she was raised with those traditional culture values because she's first generation. So it's like essentially the meal coming to you in a sense, right? Like the fish is jumping on your boat. That's nice for those that manage that, but there's not enough of those women to go around for all the men that are interested. So these are some brutal truths that I think a lot of men, especially that are already overseas, need to have an honest conversation internally about. And for the men that are going overseas, I just hope this video can help you understand the dynamics on a much more nuanced, deeper level, because it's very easy to go on TikTok or Instagram and, you know, guys that are just passing through places are in vacation mode. Everything seems nice until you settle in and see, you know, the facade kind of come crumbling down, and you get to actually peer behind the veil of how things really work and what's really going on. I would consider myself in the more specialized, luckier branch of this because I was born in Romania. I went back overseas to Romania. I've been in America since I was 2 years old, but my family made sure I knew the language, could speak it, write it. So for me, integrating as a foreigner, I'm American by mentality, voice, culture, everything, but to go back home and say, hey, I'm Romanian American. I've lived overseas since I was a baby. And they go, oh my God, you're Romanian is nice. Wow, you speak very well. Wow, your parents taught you good. Oh yeah, well, okay. And then that makes things much easier for me. The racial component is there too. You've been dating outside of Romania within the Balkans. We all look the same. We all eat the same food, practice the same religion. Much less friction there when it comes to the family. So be very wary of going overseas thinking you may land, or it'll be easy to land such a traditional, high quality, high value, whatever you want to call it. But that exact woman you're like dreaming up in your mind, trust me, she's not on the Passport Bro videos, not on the digital nomad, not on those dudes with the bottles popping on the fucking boats and clubs and beaches. And trust me, that's not those women. They're selling a lifestyle, they're selling views because of the financial incentive to get you to click. So, keeping it real with you boys. One hundo, even if it hurts. And take it from me. I've lived this shit. I went through. We were planning it years ago when I still lived in America. I'm coming back to America, but before then, we were talking about the passport stuff. Can't wait to go see. Went, saw, lived, experienced, saw the. What's going on, everybody? How are you guys doing today? Indeedy. I have to get the suits out again. How'd I change clothes so fast? It's magic.
Henry Dorset case $10, new to your content and enjoying it. Young man, and I've had enough just lazing around. Where would you recommend starting for a career/skills to escape the rat race or make it a bit more tolerable?
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for tuning in. Where would you recommend starting for a career/skills to escape the rat race? Start asking questions and start looking up on YouTube University, figuring out from other people what to do. Try to find videos that are kind of in, I wouldn't even call it a niche. Find things that you're interested in and see if there's a natural way that you can end up on a path to monetize whatever it is that you take interest in. You basically have two choices. You do something you're interested in first, or you're going to have to do something that you have no interest in but brings you money. It would be nice if you could do something you also like, but in the world that we're living in today, as you've seen, basically the economy and jobs, you're struggling as well. You might have to do something that gets you money that you may not enjoy. But with the power of the internet, AI, there's so much you can do, but we don't know your situation, your skills, your aptitudes, your natural ability. That stuff is extremely important. It's really hard when people ask those kind of like broad questions of what can I do? What should I do? How do I make some money? Well, you have to ask the right questions. Appreciate it, guys. I haven't worn these in a while since I had the real studio. So now that I have a real studio again with a nice camera, it's time to get suited up. Got a little lazy there. Started wearing normal shirts and shit. So just easy to throw something on, but people do judge a book by its cover. Well, thank you, Henry. Hope that helped you, brother. And if you can, join the community over on School. It's free, you guys. We have a free community. It replaced Discord. So I'm going to put it up for you guys here. It's free to join. Let me post the invite in the chat. There you go. So I just pinned the message in the chat for you guys. And join if you haven't. I do calls in the private one 3 times a week, but in the public one, it gives you a space to talk with other men, ask questions, and get answers to stuff like that. And you can make some connections. There's a map built in there. You could see if there's people around you from the community living around. Great place to network. Our last Discord had over like 10,000 members. So I think as long as we keep pushing it and growing it, this is it right here, Tribe of Men. That's cool. Links in the comments, guys. So, geez Louise. Topic of the day is it's kind of a crazy one. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'll let you know. So we'll start with the Trump one, because that's I've everywhere all over social media, I'm seeing clips of the speech. I'm seeing kind of cringe moments. I'm seeing a bunch of takes from everybody. So I got one here. If you're not too politically inclined, it's okay. I'll dumb this down a little bit. I know some people don't care for these kinds of topics, but it's really important. Red pill politics you may not care about, but they do care about you. So essentially what happened is Trump gave a speech at the Israeli Knesset. I believe yesterday it was, yeah. And he's up there celebrating, as usual, the ceasefire deal that he just got for Gaza. Talking about how he ended the age of terror, how he got all the hostages released, right? There's 25 living and 28 bodies returned. And Netanyahu standing there praising him, saying that he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for ending the conflict, of course. You got him. The man loves his ego and having his head blow up more and more. So, on the surface, you look at this and you think like, okay, no problem. Hostages are home. The war's over. That's good, right? Totally. That's a win. And that is a win. But when you actually dig into what actually happened over the last 9 fucking months since Trump took office in January, the whole America First thing, it starts to look like complete bullshit. And I know a lot of people are going to start rolling their eyes and go like, TDS, but just hear me out on this, because we have to hold these people accountable. They don't care about the average person. They're enriching themselves, if you haven't figured it out with crypto yet. I'm going to have to be real here with you. So Trump presided over 9 months of an intensified conflict in Gaza. That's a fact. 9 months where the U.S. supplied billions in weapons to Israel. We're talking precision-guided munitions, intelligence sharing, emergency aid packages that bypass congressional oversight entirely, right? So we're talking $3.8 billion annually in aid to Israel, and that's just the baseline. Then you have the emergency packages on top of all of that too. And so what happened with all those weapons? Well, the UN estimates that over 67,000, this is the UN's numbers, 67,000 Palestinians killed. Now you can argue about Hamas using human shields. Yeah, they're pieces of shit. You can argue about Israel's right to defend herself after October 7th. You'd be correct on that too. Those are all fair points. But the scale of the destruction, think about the destruction. You have UN reports documenting intentional starvation tactics, targeting the civilians, guys, children. And the International Court of Justice is looking at genocide allegations. But America will veto or outright bully any international body that's trying to make Israel accountable for all this. It's already happened. And Trump's up there in the Castanet talking about historic dawn of a new Middle East, taking credit for the peace, while completely ignoring that he just spent 9 months arming one side of a conflict that's killing tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 people. And this is for America first, right? What are you talking about, America first? Okay. So during this speech, where this gets really fucking interesting, by the way, Trump spotlights this woman in his particular speech, and it got really awkward. Her name's Miriam Adelson. She's the widow of Sheldon Adelson. If you don't know who these are, I'll illuminate this for you in a second. And he's praising this woman, right? Talking about how she and her husband visited the White House more than anybody else during his first term. Think about that. More than anybody else. And he credits them with all the major policy decisions, like moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights as Israeli territory. Think about that. And then Trump tells this story. He asked Miriam Adelson if she loves America or Israel more, and it's on video. And he's making this joke. She says she wouldn't answer, that she refused to say. And Trump is just laughing over there on the podium. It's a fucking joke. But the rest of the room in that moment was silent. It was uncomfortable as fuck. Crickets for a second. Except it's not a fucking joke. That's the problem right there. This woman and her late husband contributed over $200 million to Trump's campaigns. $200 million. And she won't say that she loves America or Israel more? And Trump thinks that's funny. He's bragging about it in the Castanet. That's not America first, guys. That's Israel first with American money and American weapons. Okay? Think about what this means. You've got a major donor, and I'm talking mega donor, who's given hundreds of millions to Trump's campaigns, and the policies that get implemented, right? Embassy move, Golan Heights recognition, opposing Palestinian statehood, expanded settlements. These aren't things that benefit America. These are things that benefit Israel. And they're happening because a billionaire donor made them happen. This is the definition of foreign influence in American politics, isn't it? And before you say, well, Trump's just supporting our ally in the Middle East, our closest ally. Let me ask you something. What has Israel done for America lately? What are we getting out of this relationship besides $3.8 billion annual bill and the entanglement in Middle Eastern fucking conflicts that have nothing to do with us? Nothing with American security. We're not at risk. Okay. You want to talk about draining the swamp, about ending corruption, about putting America first, but you're taking marching orders from donors who won't even say they love America more than a foreign country? Are you fucking kidding me? And Trump has this history with it's a weird history with the Adelsons. That makes it even more hypocritical. People don't even remember or know about this one. In 2015, during the primary, he tweeted about Sheldon Adelson being a puppet master for Marco Rubio. And he called him out for trying to buy influence. And now Trump's in there in Jerusalem praising the same family for their influence on his policies. What changed? $200 million. That's what changed. 200 buckaroos. Makes the man change his mind real quick. He's got 200 million reasons to. So let's go back and talk about what happened during those 9 months. On October 7th, we all know Hamas attacks Israel. Worst attack on the Jews since the Holocaust, according to Trump. Absolutely horrific, no question, okay? And Israel responds with massive military operations in Gaza. You get a 2-year war, fast forward. And that's when Trump takes office in January 25. He inherits the ongoing conflict from Bozo Biden. And what does he do? He escalates the arms shipments to Israel. He provides diplomatic cover to the UN. He bombs Iranian nuclear sites. He supplies intelligence. He gives Israel practically everything they ask for, and the conflict intensifies. So conservative outlets, when you look on the news, they frame this as supporting an ally against terrorism, as helping Israel defend herself. And there's truth to that, of course. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They did launch those attacks. Israel has a right to respond. Although, ironically, Israel funded Hamas. Israel needed Hamas as a pretext to go in and take pieces of Gaza, if not outright cleanse the whole area. Useful idiots, you could say. But over 67,000 dead, likely more. The infrastructure is destroyed, and I mean, destroyed doesn't even begin to describe what it looks like. It looked like a nuclear bomb hit that place. You have accusations of ethnic cleansing. You know, the UN is calling it the genocide, and Trump's admins supplied them all the weapons of it. And honestly, let's just be fucking real. It is a genocide, okay? They are ethnically cleansing the territory. And now he's celebrating peace? And he's taking credit for ending what he spent 9 months enabling. I bet you he's actually really happy that he's going to build his Trump towers and casinos and all that other shit there. More money we're spending, billions. We're going to spend billions developing Gaza. Weird. So the ceasefire happens. The hostages get released. Trump goes to Jerusalem, right? Claims victory. Netanyahu nominates him for the Nobel Peace Prize. The same fucking Nobel Peace Prize that Trump's been saying for years that he deserves, but they'll never give him for obvious reasons because it's rigged and all that other shit, like he loves to say. Maybe he does deserve some credit for the ceasefire. His team did negotiate it. He had the special envoy with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner there, and they did get the Arab nations to pressure Hamas. That was good. They brokered the deal. The hostages are home, right? The rockets have stopped. Those are real achievements, so credit where credit is due. I understand. But you don't get to take credit for peace when you spent 9 months supplying weapons for the fucking war. Does that make sense? That's all I'm saying. Okay? So, and I think this is the most important question about this whole thing. Was this even Trump's negotiating genius? Hear me out for this. Or was this a calculated move by Israel? Think about the timing for a second, if you will. Think about what's been happening internationally. Israel was facing massive backlash. The UN reports, the ICJ genocide allegations, the European countries, a bunch of them were talking about arms embargoes. The college campuses were erupting with anti-Semitism, anti-Israel rhetoric. And this is the part that really matters to them, because Gen Z is now turning against Israel in record numbers, both conservative and liberal Gen Z. Unfavorability ratings for Israel are hitting like historic highs, above 50%, even for conservative Gen Z. The young people, imagine this. This is the demographic that's supposed to be America's future. And they're looking at what's happening in Gaza and saying, like, this is fucked. This is wrong. They're vocal about it too. Obviously, you've seen them in college. Israel's watching this. Netanyahu, he's watching this. And they're seeing the long-term problem. You can't maintain American support if the entire generation is turning against you. And you can't keep the aid flowing if public opinion shifts that dramatically. So Netanyahu starts doing podcast tours, and you've seen them, they're fucking cringy. And Israel starts buying up or partnering with social media influencers, right? They practically own TikTok now, and they got deals with all the other big social medias, and including the influencer campaigns. People are getting $7,000 checks for every good post about Israel. I want my money. I want to get paid. I'll take 7Gs. I think my audience knows, though, if I start glazing, get me kissing walls and shit, they know it's over. Can't do that. So what do they do with all this, right? Think about it. You give Trump his win. You broker a ceasefire. You release the hostages, right? You let him come to Jerusalem and take credit. You nominate him for a Nobel. And you secure another 4 to 8 years of unconditional American support. Because there were rumors Netanyahu supposedly was going around saying that he owned Trump and that Trump would do whatever he told him. And if those rumors are true, and let's be fucking real here, 200 million in Adelson money suggests that might be true, then this whole ceasefire could be theater. I just want you to look at it that way. So Israel gets to consolidate territorial gains. They get to pause so they can reset. And that gets Trump looking strong, right? Which keeps him in power, which keeps the aid flowing. And they stop the bleeding on international opinion before it gets so bad that even American support becomes politically impossible. There's only so many more of these videos and cleansing that could happen before they lost almost everybody. It's getting increasingly difficult for people to even have a conversation without Israel coming up. Like all the main conservative influencers that are, neocons and massive glazers, we'll say that in a nice way, super pro-Zionist, they're getting hammered by questions from the crowd, all dealing with Israel and America first. So this might be Netanyahu throwing Trump a bone. That's what I'm saying. So you let him have his victory lap while Israel gets exactly what it wanted all along. And Trump is in there in the Knesset, like he brokered the fucking Middle East peace deal, potentially. While Netanyahu's probably fucking laughing because he just played the whole thing perfectly. That would be his MO, right? You got 9 months of American weapons to do what you needed in Gaza. Then you got a ceasefire called when the political costs start getting too high. These people are very calculating. You hand Trump a win, wipe your hands of that one. Big ego man feels good, right? And then you secure continued American support. And everybody acts like Trump's a genius. Master negotiator. It's a fucking win-win. Bow tie perfection, no? But that's not America first. That's just being played and being used. You have to wonder, is this even real peace? Or is this just strategic pause? Because you need to understand something about the Likud party. And if you don't know, this is the party that's in power in Israel right now. Their goal, you can Google this, is called Greater Israel. I'm laying this out kind of like basic for the people that don't know any of this shit. It's not a conspiracy theory. That's literally their stated objective. They want all the territory, the West Bank, Gaza, Golan Heights, all of it under Israel control. I'm telling you, a quick Google search will show you as much. And then there's this document that people have been referencing lately. You might have seen it, a bunch of other mainstream creators. It's called the Clean Break Memo. People have brought it up recently a lot. It was written for Netanyahu back in the 90s, and it lays out the entire strategy. It explicitly rejects the two-state solution, abandons the whole land for peace framework, and it calls for forcing Israel, or I should say, it calls it forcing Israel to cultural and economic military retreat. We can't have that, according to the Israelis, of course. So instead, the memo promotes the idea of peace through strength, right? Military power. And where they'll also force Arabs unconditionally to accept Israel's territorial claims. And there mean no compromises, no giving back land, just Israel dominance backed by military power. That's what the memo states. I mean, literally, the memo says that Israel should reject any obligations under the Oslo Accords if Palestinians don't do exactly what Israel demands. It talks about Israel maintaining the right to hot pursuit into all Palestinian areas, which means no Palestinian sovereignty, ever. Because Israel can just cross any border whenever they want. Isn't that fucked up? Under security reasons. So there was never a two-state solution to begin with. Think about
Isaac
what this means
$5.
for the
All of today's
ceasefire.
events reminds me of the opening verse.
I'll get to these in a second, boys. So, as far as the ceasefire, if the party in power believes in greater Israel, if their strategy document explicitly rejects Palestinian statehood and the two-state solution in general, if their whole framework is about using strength to force Arabs to accept Israeli territorial maximalism, then what is the ceasefire actually? Think about that. It's a pause. That's all it is. A strategic pause to reset, to consolidate the gains, to let international pressure die down. And you give Trump his win, you secure American support for the next phase of what's about to happen. Because the clean break memo, talks about transcending the Arab-Israeli conflict through Israeli strength, not about resolving it, not negotiating a permanent peace of any kind, just using power to force acceptance on Israel's terms. And Netanyahu's been following this playbook his entire political career. He reportedly rejected some of the most aggressive parts, like immediately striking Syria when the document came out, things like that. But the core strategy, rejecting land for peace, maintaining territorial claims, using military strength instead of negotiating, that's all there, and that's all the MO. It's playing out. So when Trump is like celebrating this historic peace deal, when he's talking about the dawn of this new Middle East, you have to ask, how long is this going to really last? Because if the party in power fundamentally rejects Palestinian sovereignty, if their stated goal is greater Israel with all the territory, if that's their strategic framework and it means forcing acceptance through strength rather than compromising, then it's not peace. This is a ceasefire. And that's a big fucking difference, you guys. Peace means both sides accept permanent arrangement. Two states, defined borders, mutual recognition, done. It ends there. That's not what's happening here. A ceasefire means that the shooting stops for now. Both sides regroup a bit and then prepare for the next round. Which one? And I just ask you, which one do you think this is based on, right? And if you're looking at Likud's Greater Israel goals, what do you think? Based on the clean break, the memo's rejection, based on Netanyahu's entire political history of undermining peace processes. The hostages coming home, Israel, give them credit for that, right? The rockets stopping, that's good. People are safe. Those are genuine achievements. Yeah, he did have a ceasefire. But calling this permanent peace, calling this the end of the conflict, we're bullshitting now. That might be premature. That's a more politically correct term to use, I guess. Because the fundamental issues aren't resolved. We didn't talk about Palestinian statehood. That wasn't discussed. The borders were not addressed, right? There were no final borders. Nothing got defined. The right of return for refugees were not discussed. Status of Jerusalem still disputed. So Trump's deal didn't solve any of that. Those are core issues. It just pauses the fighting. And if Israel's long-term goal is still greater Israel, we're not dumb. If they're still following the clean break playbook of forcing Arab acceptance through strength, rather than negotiating or compromising anyway, then this ceasefire could collapse the moment it becomes politically convenient for them. And how long is that going to take? Well, it depends on what's going on in the world and what we're distracted by. So Trump spent 9 months arming Israel, billions of weapons, diplomatic cover for thousands of Palestinian deaths, all for what? A temporary pause that lets Israel consolidate territory and prepare for the next phase. That's what this is. Both things can be true, by the way. The ceasefire can be good. The war ending is good. The war ending, that's good. Hostages coming home, that's great. Happy for the people, of course. The killing stops. Finally, these are innocent people that are being murdered, right? But Trump's foreign policy is completely captured by pro-Israel donors who dictate American Middle East policy for their own interest. That can also be true. You had Ron Paul, he came out and said that Trump betrayed the non-interventionism, that he's prioritizing Israeli interest over American ones, and he's fucking right, dude, that's true. This isn't America first. It's not what it was supposed to look like. America first was supposed to mean no more foreign entanglements, no more endless wars, no more sending billions in aid overseas. while Americans back home are struggling with inflation, can't get jobs like this guy from the earlier super chat, right? Lost, can't afford houses. No more letting foreign interests dictate American policy. That's what it meant. But that's exactly what happened here. Trump campaigned on draining the swamp, on ending corruption, on putting America first, and then he takes $200 million from Adelson's and implements their foreign policy wish list while American interests take a back seat. And he's standing in the Kessin and joking about this shit. Not saying, or joking about Miriam not saying if she loves America more. What? That should make every America First conservative fucking furious, dude. That's not America First. That's America Last. Literally. I don't know. That's my take on the whole ceasefire. I've seen a bunch of them. So, someone said ending the conflict is bad. No, ending the conflict is good. But knowing what we know about the Likud party, Netanyahu, and what's the plan for Israel for the future and consolidating power in the region, it's not going to end, and it won't end. They have territorial ambitions, and they will not openly say it, but would like to cleanse the area of undesirables. That's a fact. Okay, that's not a fact. Can't say that's a fact, but that is not exactly a stretch given the historical precedents in the region. Yeah. Let me get that last super chat.
Isaac $5. All of today's events reminds me of the opening verse to Queen's song, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Appreciate you, Isaac. Thanks for the 5, brother. Yeah. Anyways. It's just sad, dude. So, while Trump celebrates the ceasefire in that little theater in Jerusalem, he's patting himself on the back. There's another story in Europe that I wanted to talk to you guys about that shows exactly what's happening. You could probably call this donor-driven elite policy and what it looks like when it goes full authoritarianism on the general population. This one hits different because it's not about foreign wars. It's about what happens when your own government decides that you don't get to choose who lives in your neighborhood anymore. Sweden is insane. I don't even know. This, by the way, thank you to the person that emailed me a bunch of links. You know who you are. I actually read my email, you guys. So if you want to email me stuff like that, scoops, information, I spend all day researching this stuff to prepare. So the Social Democratic Party just had their Congress in May 25, and they formalized this policy that they're calling population mixing. I'm not joking. We have to be real what that actually means. They're forcing native Swedes to accept migrants in their communities, into their schools, into their neighborhoods, whether they want to or not. Does that sound familiar to you? I think America went through something like this. And when I say forcing, I mean like literally they're being forced, not with bayonets and weapons pointed at them, but in another way, a very communist kind of way. So the party's slogan is literally, nobody has the right to choose their neighbor. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's their actual campaign message. Nobody has the right to choose their neighbor. Think about that for a second. Your government telling you that you don't get a say in who moves in next door, who your kids go to school with, who your community, or I should say, what your community looks like. And this is coming from the same party that spent the last 50 years importing hundreds of thousands of migrants from Somalia, fucking Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. This is the same party that created the conditions where native Swedes fled to wealthy villa towns to get away from the crime. And now they're following Swedes into those safe areas and forcing them to take migrants there too. So the hypocrisy is fucking breathtaking. Here's the timeline for everyone. So back in the 70s, Sweden's parliament unanimously adopted multiculturalism as a national policy, right? So The socialist government was saying that we're going to be diverse and humanitarian and open our borders. And the migrants came, hundreds of thousands of non-Europeans, right? And they didn't integrate at all. Shocker. Shocker to literally nobody. They formed parallel societies in the suburbs. Welfare, dependency, gang violence, cultural practices that are completely incompatible with Swedish values. And the crime rates exploded. Okay, Sweden's rape rate increased 1,472% since 1975. 1,472%. Do you understand what that means? You have 42,000, nearly 43,000 reported rapes in the last 5 years alone. 997 bombings. 40,000 women subjected to genital mutilation. Let me say that again for you. 40,000 women with female genital mutilation in Sweden. In fucking Sweden. And native Swedes looked at this and they did what any rational person would do. They moved, bro. They self-segregated into wealthy areas where they could raise their families safely, right? And where their daughters wouldn't get fucking raped walking home from school, where their property wouldn't get blown up by gang warfare and all this crazy shit. And the socialist elites call them racist for it. Unfucking believable. Now, the same elites are doubling down. So instead of admitting that mass migration, immigration, whatever you want to fucking call it, failed horrendously, instead of closing the borders and deporting the criminals, instead of demanding assimilation, they're forcing population mixing. They're saying that the problem isn't that we brought in the people who won't integrate. The problem is that Swedes won't live with them. Fucking liberal logic. So here's what they're doing, guys. Here's their galaxy brain plan. They're banning municipalities from placing new migrants in the suburbs. The suburbs that are already overrun with crime. So instead, they're mandating relocations to wealthy areas. Socioeconomically strong zones is what they are, right? So they place, or I would say, the place where the native Swedes moved to escape all this bullshit. And they're using housing policy to do this. They're seizing land. They're reallocating property. This is fucking treason. They're building subsidized apartment buildings in the middle of villa towns. Single family home neighborhoods getting these rental complexes that are fucking dropped in there with state subsidies. And if municipalities resist, if the local governments say, no, we don't want this shit in our backyard, the national government withholds infrastructure funding until they comply. That's not fucking, dude. That's extortion under the guise of policy. That's insane. In education, they're busing, children now in small towns that they centralized, the schools, and then they started transporting these kids to achieve what they called mixed schools because 75% of students in some areas had foreign backgrounds. So they're busing Swedish kids into these environments. They're taking your child and putting them into a dangerous school filled with migrants that have not assimilated, migrant children. You're going to see videos of Swedish boys and girls getting absolutely fucked up in these schools where they're going to be hated and the minority in their own country. They're using them in what critics call integration tools. Swedish children, dude, they're being used as tools to integrate migrants who refuse to assimilate. How fucking maddening is that? This is treason. Your government, the Swedish government, is putting your kids on buses and sending them to schools with 75% foreign students from cultures where women are property, where honor killings are normal, where sexual assault rates are through the fucking roof. And you're supposed to smile and call that shit diversity. And they had a televised debate, right? And during the televised debate, the social democratic leader, her name is Magdalena Andersson, she was confronted about this exact problem. And she denied it. It's no surprise, woman too, this is coming from a woman. She said the accusations of forced mixing and busing children are fabrications, lies. Except the Congress documents explicitly state that the population must be mixed. They have a dude named Jonas Attinius, and he's the senior in Gothenburg, an official, and he got quoted as, "The population must be mixed over a generation. Not encouraged to mix, not incentivized to mix, must be mixed by government force." Holy shit. You thought America had problems. And the person heading the integration working group says that they're serious about breaking segregation, and they're going to use housing as the primary engine for this change. And when they say they're breaking segregation, what they mean is breaking up Swedish communities, forcing them to accept what their government imposed on them. And this is the part that makes it should make you fucking enraged. The elites pushing these policies, the party leaders, the wealthy socialists, where do they live? Take a guess. In segregated areas, wealthy enclaves, in protected communities where, they don't have to deal with any of this stink. They live in the exact same self-segregated neighborhoods that they're condemning native Swedes for creating. But when regular Swedes try to protect their families, try to choose safe neighbors for their children, that's racism. That's bigotry. That must be destroyed by state intervention. And when you point this out, they'll call you a Nazi. They say that you're far right, that you hate immigrants. You're against diversity, you fucking bigot. But this isn't about hating immigrants. This is just what happens when you import hundreds of thousands of people from cultures fundamentally incompatible with values that are incompatible, and then refuse to demand that they assimilate. And what this creates is basically massive crime and social problems. And then your solution is to just force everyone else to live with the consequences of your failed policies? That's bullshit. So let's talk about what the consequences actually are, because the statistics are fucking horrifying. I only read you a few. So 1,472% increase in rape since mass immigration began. And we're not talking about date rape or gray area consent issues. We're talking about gang rapes, child rapes, violent sexual assaults by migrants from cultures where women who aren't covered up are considered fair game. Swedish girls, teenagers getting gang raped by migrant men who face criminal consequences that are minimal at best because the courts are terrified of being called racist. I shit you not. And when parents try to protect their daughters by moving to a safer area, by choosing schools with fewer foreign students, the government shows up and forces mixing on them. They had 997 bombings in 5 years. Think about that. In Sweden, this is one of the safest countries in the world for decades. It used to be, at least. Now they're averaging 200 bombs per year. Gang warfare over drug territory, grenade explosions, explosions in general. They're turning Swedish cities into war zones. And 40,000 cases of female genital mutilation. 40,000 women, you guys, who had their genitals cut off because their families brought that fucking practice from Somalia, and nobody in the Swedish government had the balls to say that's not acceptable here. We don't do that. If you want to live in Sweden, you have to leave that barbaric shit behind. But they didn't say that. They said diversity is our strength. They said we must be tolerant. They said that questioning these practices is Islamophobic. And 40,000 women paid the fucking price for that. And now when Swedes self-segregate to protect their families from all of this, the government calls it a problem. Calls it creating parallel societies. Yeah, the Swedes are creating the parallel society in their own society. Does that make any fucking sense? And then it forces them back into contact with the exact populations that they were fleeing. The policy is called integration. But let's be honest about what that actually is. It's punishment. It's the Swedish government punishing native Swedes for noticing mass immigration failed completely and totally. For noticing that the rape rates exploded, for noticing that their daughters aren't safe anymore, and for having the audacity to move somewhere safer. White flight, how dare you? So now you're going to mix, whether you like it or not, citizen. Nobody has the right to choose their neighbor. Your kids are going to go on the bus to the 75% foreign background school. Your wealthy neighborhood is getting the subsidized housing complex. And if you complain, you're a bigot. So government apologized, and this is how fucking far gone Sweden is. The government, you guys, has apologized to migrants for placing them in the suburbs initially. The government said that society needs to intervene and comprehensively as well over a generation to fix this integration debt. Integration debt? Excuse the fuck out of me? Like Sweden owes something to the people who came as refugees and then formed parallel societies and then refused to adapt to Swedish values. They have a debt to them. What debt? You took them in. You gave them welfare. You gave them housing, opportunities, and they responded by creating no-go zones where the police can't even go anymore. They formed criminal gangs. They maintained practices like fucking cutting off, genitals, mutilation, all that stuff. Honor killings, raping Swedish women at rates 1,400%. That's insane. And Sweden owes these people a debt? Are you fucking kidding me? The party's billing this shit as a U-turn. Believe it or not, on integration, this is a U-turn for them. They're acknowledging that the past policies of placing migrants in suburbs didn't work, but they're not acknowledging why it didn't work. They're not saying we brought in too many people too fast. They're incompatible with our culture. No. They're not saying that we should have demanded more assimilation. Not saying that we should stop letting in 94 fucking thousand migrants per year when the economy is shrinking and their welfare system's collapsing. No. You know what they're saying the problem is? Segregation somehow. Swedish people choosing to live with other Swedish people. That's the problem, comrade. I get it now. So we'll fix it by state force now. And when you look at who's pushing this shit, follow the money, you guys. Follow the donors. Follow the NGOs that profit from mass migration. Follow the construction companies that get contracts to build the subsidized housing. Follow the politicians whose careers depend on the minority voting blocks that they fucking import. Scumbag cocksuckers. This is Sweden's version of what we talked about with Trump and Adelson. Foreign interests and elite donors dictating policy that fucks over regular citizens while the people making the decisions are insulated from those consequences. Anderson, the female leader, was standing there denying forced mixing while her party's Congress documents explicitly mandate the shit. And they're all living in these wealthy segregated areas while forcing other Swedes to accept migrants in theirs. Sounds like our Democrats. Sounds like our Republican elite. The same hypocrisy as Trump joking about Adelson not saying if she loves America more. These are elites, and they're making the decisions that regular people have to live with. And when regular people try to protect themselves, you try to create a safe fucking community for yourself, for your family, the government comes and crushes you for it. Right? So they're thinking, okay, what does this mean for Sweden's future, for example? Because we're not just talking about policy, right? We're talking about demographic replacement, cultural destruction, wholesale by the state, the end of Sweden and Swedes as you know it. If you force population mixing across an entire country, if you bus children to majority foreign schools, if you build migrant housing in every Swedish neighborhood, if you do this over a generation like they're planning, what do you get? You get a country where native Swedes are a minority in their own homeland, where Swedish culture is diluted and eventually erased, where entire neighbors that were once safe for a fucking 1,000 years become dangerous, as they have been for the past 20 years in Sweden. Look at Malmo. It's a shithole. Women can't walk home alone. Gang violence reigns supreme. Islamic cultural practices replace Swedish ones. That's the future you want for Europe? And before someone says that's hyperbole, that's not how any of this shit works. Look at the suburbs they already destroyed, motherfucker. Look at Malmo. Look at the no-go zones. That's what happens when you concentrate migrants from non-assimilating cultures. Migrants, period, that don't assimilate. I'm not even going to give you the culture route. Fuck that shit. Fuck it. I don't care. Culture or not. Migrants, end of story, that don't assimilate. And then they're spreading across the entire country by force at the hands of the government. The Social Democrats know that this will take a generation. They're admitting that much at least. And a generation of forced mixing, no less. A generation of Swedish children being used as integration tools by the government. Right? You have generation of property seizures. Mandatory relocations? What the fuck communist shit is that? And at the end of all that, at the end of that generation, Sweden won't be Swedish anymore. I guarantee it. It'll be balkanized mess of competing ethnic and religious groups with no shared values or culture. Look at the UK. Look at London. Look at fucking Paris. When the crime rates that make it unlivable and then coupled with Sharia law in some areas, mixed in with Swedish law in the others, then you have like honor killings on another side, gang warfare right next to that, and the rape statistics that keep climbing. Jeez Louise, dude, that's not integration. That's civilizational suicide. And it's being mandated by a government that claims to represent the people while telling them that they have no right to choose who lives next door. How does that work? And the Gen Z Swedes, dude, they're watching all this and they're fucking angry. Both the conservative and the liberal young Swedes are looking at what's happening. And they're saying that this is fucked because they're the ones who have to live with it. They're the ones getting raped. They're the ones that are watching their neighborhoods destroyed. They're the ones who don't have a country that looks anything like the Sweden that their grandparents knew. And the polls are showing it. The Sweden Democrats, by the way, the populist party that wants closed borders and return migration and the end to this insanity, they're gaining. The 2026 elections are looking like essentially a referendum on forced integration. That's pretty much what it's going to come down to. And the social Democrats, might finally face the consequences of 50 plus years of failed policies. But even if the Sweden Democrats even if they close the borders tomorrow, even if they stop all this new migration completely, the damage is done, dude. You have hundreds of thousands of migrants who won't assimilate, who won't leave, who have birth rates way higher than native Swedes, who are having 5 or 6 kids while Swedish families only having 1 or 2 at most. The demographics are locked in, boys. Even without new migration, the Muslim population keeps growing. The parallel societies will keep expanding and the crime will keep increasing because you can't undo 50 years of mass immigration with one fucking election. Sweden is a warning. This is what happens when you let elites with donor money and globalist ideology dictate immigration policy. When you prioritize being called tolerant over protecting your own people and you refuse to demand assimilation, right? This is punishment of your own citizens for noticing the problems. And then you're trying to escape them. That's fucking wild. And when it all falls apart, when the crime is undeniable, when the cultural clashes are fucking everywhere and your people are fleeing, the elites will double down as if, bro. And they blame you for self-segregating, forcing mixing. They use your children as fucking tools. You have no right to choose your neighbor, dude. What is that? That's not democracy. That's authoritarianism. That's your government destroying your country and forcing you to participate in the destruction. The American parallel should be obvious for you guys right here. We're watching the same thing play out here. We had mass immigration from incompatible cultures that refused to fucking assimilate. They turned into their own carve-outs. They're voting in their own leadership, quite literally, and they're forcing out the natives in a sense. That's why the elites refuse to enforce the borders or demand assimilation. It's a cheap workforce for them and it divides the people. And that donor money, dude, that donor money is hard to turn down, especially if you need it to win an election. And that's what drives the policy. That's what's hurting, for example, the American worker. And when Americans notice and complain, they also got called racist. The only difference is that we're not as far down the path as Sweden is, for example. Yet, right? Yet. But if the elites had their way, if Dems won, for example, or if the NGOs and donors and globalists got full control or are not dismantled totally by the time, let's just say, Vance is finishing with his 2 terms, if he gets to run twice and win, we'd be doing the same exact forced mixing bullshit too. We're not that far behind. We'd be busing kids. We'd be reconstituting societies too, neighborhoods. We were already doing black flights. We were already having demographic shifts in small towns. Remember, they're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Yeah. You would have been told that you have no right to preserve your community. That's what America First was supposed to prevent. That's why borders matter for those Europeans that are listening. That's why assimilation matters. That's why you can't just import millions of people from the third fucking world and expect them to become whatever it is country that they moved into. For us, let's just say American. Sweden is like the laboratory experiment for what happens when you try and the experiment fails catastrophically. You get rape, bombs, mutilated women, and destroyed communities. And instead of admitting the failure and changing course, the Swedish government is forcing everybody to live in the hell of their failed experiment. That's what elite policy looks like. That is why Europe has an uprising of far right, as they call them, communities or populist leaders. Because if you thought America was bad, I just spelled out to you what's going on in Sweden. So, anyways, let's get into some of these supers. We'll react to some videos. Why not? We're chilling. We're what? An hour, 20 minutes in? Let's see what we got here.
Roy Hay $5,741 $6.52. David Icke is right about shape-shifting reptiles ruling the world as crazy as it and work hard. Jordan Kavitzel is right about Illuminati sacrificing kids.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. All right. Went hard and he went deep in the paint there. Okay.
SC $5.26. Swede here. Can confirm everything. One mother and daughter lost their legs after a hand grenade was thrown in their bedroom. The target lived next door.
Wow.
Eric Z $4.99. I live in Minnesota, plan to leave this shit state very soon before the Somalian mayor of Minneapolis gets in bio. Smiley face emoji, smiley face emoji.
Go to Montana, brother. I'll be there soon enough. We'll create our own community. I'm actually going to build, I want to buy land. I don't know yet where, but I want to get a lot of acres, dude, 20, 30 acres. And I want to put tents, like yurts up on there. And we're going to do little like 2-day retreats and stuff like that. And I can't wait. I will do it with the community. Guys will fly in from all over the world, the states, whatever. And we're going to do some hardcore 2-day retreats and take your asses into the wild. Yes, indeedy. Probably going to do groups of, I don't know, 10 to 15, maybe 20 people max. We'll see. Not too big. And we'll do them, I don't know, eventually once a month, but I'll have it planned once we fill in enough spots. It's going to be amazing. It's exactly what guys will need to relight that fire in your ass. Some of you are just barely zombieing through life. Okay. I don't have anything really saved. I guess we'll do this as a diary of a CEO episode.
The feminism movement.
And let's see if there's anything interesting here. We'll watch it then. Casual sex in the hookup culture. Let's do that. Let's see how these feminists
just add to that before you jump in there. Despite the general decline in sex, especially amongst younger people, societal acceptance of casual sex has grown quite rapidly. In the UK, approval of casual sex rose from just 10% in 1999 to 42% in 2022.
The hookup culture.
Yeah.
So when you say rules and structure, Erica, I'm really interested in that turn of phrase because, of course, children need rules and structure, but women aren't children.
Well, we're all children. Men are children too. From a psychoanalyst perspective, there's a child in everyone.
Of course, but I think when we're talking about rules and grown women, we are really, really in dangerous water because we are looking at a society that is increasingly closing down on women and telling women where they could do better, be better. If we're looking at an extreme example, we're looking at Iran in 1970s and women in parliament and women walking around as part of the sexual revolution in miniskirts and having a wonderful time. And then you're looking at women in Iran now. You're looking at women in Afghanistan now. Women.
I wonder why, bro.
Totally awesome $4.99. It's funny how liberal citizens are moving to European countries, but Europe is becoming a right-wing continent.
Yeah. If those right-wingers get into power, Americans won't even be welcome. That's what's funny. You haven't seen ethno-nationalism until you get a piece of it deep in the heart of Europe.
Afghanistan now have rules and they have structure. They can't stand near a window. They can't leave the house without a man. They can't they can't use their voice in public. They can't sing. Like anything that says rules to me, I'm immediately like, firstly, our society has plenty of structure. We have a lot of structure. We all have to work to make a living. We are all encouraged into monogamous relationships, and there's a feel that you're successful if you find the one and get married and have.
Yeah, it's bullshit. That's a fabrication from Hollywood. Feminism completely destroyed the nuclear family. And by the way, when she's talking about, well, you know, when we're talking about women and structure and rules, we have to be careful. Oh, look at what happened to Afghanistan. Look at the Taliban, what happened to women. Yeah, but that's the point. You can't even fucking enforce your ideology. You are not an enforcer. You're a woman. The only reason you exist in the current state that you do is because of men, because men maintain the current power structure and its system, the rules that you're living under. And men are now getting tired of this degeneracy, which is can't get a fucking job, can't find a decent woman to save my life, hoflation is out of fucking control. You and your feminist ilk were pushing ideologies that destroyed nuclear families, the formation of families, having children, and then you pushed an insane divorce bias in the courts, so it makes it toxic for a man to get married. This is what they don't say. If you want the current system to be maintained, if you want your, quote, freedoms, you must placate to men. The feminists are not placating to the millions of men and rising. These numbers are exploding of these MGTOWs, or the men going their own way, or the guys checking out of society and becoming what they call economically unviable. There will be a day where we will reach potentially a critical mass with these men, and I guarantee you hardline right will start to win in the future. Harder right policies will take over, and yes, the structure then changes. So should you placate to men now while you still can? Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should walk back all these retarded policies. Yeah, you should tell girls, especially young women, that, you know what? Work is kind of garbage. Being a career woman, fucking terrible. Strong, independent boss babe, that's toxic and garbage. Does nothing for you. Hey, go settle down with a good guy who's earning good money. And he's got a good head on his shoulders. He doesn't have to be a 7-foot-tall minotaur bull maxer. You fucking slop dead brain fucking bird. Just get you a normal guy and get married and have his kids and treat him right and shut the fuck up. Don't make too much fucking fuss. He's going to work, putting in 12-hour shifts at a job he hates just so he can keep your hands clean. Can you appreciate a man for doing that? Can you do that bare fucking minimum? That's all guys are literally asking. Bare minimum, bro. A lot of men, these Gen Zers, the younger guys, shit, even guys my age, 30s, they're just asking, can I just get decent? Bro, decent. I'm not even, at this point, I'll take scraps, G. Can she just not have an OnlyFans? Can she not just fuck half of the fucking universe? Bro, please? Can I walk down the street and then a guy doesn't look at her and goes, dialed balls deep in that yesterday? Please. Can I get the basics? That's it. That's all a guy wants. It's like, bro, can she just treat me right? Can she just like me? Can she not act like I'm a fucking pest in her presence? Can I please just get a woman that's like finally appreciates me for just like, I'm trying, bro. I did my best. You can't. Bro, you can't get that being a fucking 7-foot-tall minotaur bull maxing with a 13-inch nodding schlong, as we've learned already. That's what's out of this fucking world. Part of the issue is the fact that these women, listen to me, I'm going on a fucking rant, I don't care. These women
are fucking brain dead on social media. The TikTok rot has completely destroyed all the neurons in their fucking brain, coupled with the fact that they're all on fucking pharmacologicals, SSRI eyes. They're completely locked. Their brains don't work. And they're watching slop nonstop. Is he 7 foot tall? Oh my God, Lamborghini. If you don't have 50,000 abs, bitch, you're fat. You got diabetes. Your fucking blood flows like molasses. Shut the fuck up. Sit down and do your job. Give some guy some sloppy toppy and just praise to be the Almighty that he even fucking took time out of his day to take you under his wing. Now he's got to deal with your molasses blood and take you to doctor's appointments because you can't stop stuffing your fucking gullet. Jesus Christ, bro. Some guys are just like, I'll take a fat chick too. Just any woman, please. They're not trying to go down the Gooner Grok fucking Annie route where they got AI girlfriends. So like, please, dude, just is there anything normal out here? No, turns out the fat chicks need a 6'2", absolutely jacked fucking specimen of the universe stud. Anything less than that is an affront to her fucking existence. How dare you breathe the same air she's breathing, you fucking pleb. That shit's wild to me, bro. A walking diabetes commercial with preferences out of this world, dude.
Isaac $5. You know you're too far gone when even the furries are telling you to calm down, lol.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
2.4 children. There's so much structure in our lives. There's very little time for relaxation or even considering what we really might want to do.
Fuck off.
I would be very intrigued to know what you mean by women should have rules.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So first of all, I don't agree with you. If I can just say that I don't agree that we are encouraging monogamy. I think we're encouraging polygamy. And I don't mean marriage polygamy. I mean multiple partners. Young people are hooking up. I wrote an article for the Institute for Family Studies on why and the statistics on the hookup culture and what it's doing to young people in terms of their mental health. It's causing them to feel more depressed, more anxious, more embarrassed, having more regrets, self-esteem issues. It's got some major implications. And we're talking, the statistics say 72 to 82%, 72% of young men and 82% of women, young women are feeling depressed and anxious after these casual sexual encounters. Tinder has an ad that says, meet the love of your night. What it does is it takes something so sacred and intimate and it turns it into something not just casual, but it turns it into something
akin to a handshake. You remember that one degenerate bitch that was talking about, sex to me is like a handshake. It's more intimate to kiss than to have my guts rearranged. They're out of their fucking minds.
Relevant, unimportant, and dangerous, if you ask me, emotionally dangerous. And it can be physically dangerous. If you're having casual sex, you could get a sexually transmitted disease. AIDS is still around. I think in a way, what we've taught our kids and what I encourage the young people that I work with is that experiment with sex. Care about the people that you're experimenting with. Find people who care about you and who you care about. So that structure.
Can I just counter about this sort of idyllic option of monogamy? In the United Kingdom, the police receive a domestic abuse-related call every 30 seconds. Yet it's estimated that less than 24% of domestic abuse crime is reported to the police.
Which men are causing the domestic abuse? She won't say which men.
1 in 4 women in England and Wales will experience domestic abuse in her lifetime. On average, nearly 2 women are killed a week in this country. And I know that America has a similar story, but probably worse because there's guns.
So it says, but in the U.S. rates of severe or repeated violence are higher, with nearly 40% of women experiencing physical or sexual violence by a partner. Which women? With what partners? They won't break those numbers down for you for a reason.
This is around the world. It's the same in Australia. It is not an either or. It's not that women were so happy and fulfilled in the 1950s because their husbands would go to work. And I mean, watch Mad Men with.
What you said, somebody said they donated something. It didn't go through? Did it skip your, let me see. Oh, that's because you donated $3, brother. Yeah, it plays at $5 and up. But I'll read it out for you since you're so butthurt. Check out the Snake Eyes in the 1896 book, The Barron Trump Collection. The latter is literally about Trump's second term. The world is not what it seems. Yeah, I've heard that. It's just coincidence. Funny one.
Which is it's a sort of researched idea of how things often were for women then and men, and how Don Draper would go off into the city. He would have a fulfilling career. Then he would sleep with any number of women and come home to his wife, who knew he was having affairs, who could sense it, who could vibe it, who could smell the perfume, and had to just put up with it until she couldn't any longer. And she was at risk of STDs because he was going out and doing whatever he wanted. The idea that a sort of monogamy is this utopia, and since we've gone into a more hookup culture, I still think there's a hell of a lot of pressure for people to find the right one. Yes, people hook up before they find the right one, but there is pressure to have the rom-com ending. Most people, if they're hooking up, are hooking up to have sexual satisfaction.
Oh my God, shut up already.
For a longer term relationship. Or they're not, and they're really happy single, and they're finding fulfillment.
Nobody is really happy single, you fuck. This is the whole problem with this. These people that are sleeping around are unhappy. They would wish they could find somebody that loves them, that could start a family with, that they don't have to be in the dating pool. It's so fucking toxic and psychologically debilitating. Nobody wants this. Everybody literally yearns for the great-grandparents' past, where they were literally like, oh, this was the girl next door. She was on the farm, and I went and I gave her a fucking sunflower. And she was like, Roy, I love you. We're getting married. And then dude got a virgin wife, and he had 9 fucking kids, and he could afford the house and all the kids, and everybody's going to college, and he's got a car in the American dream. That's what people want.
$5. Bo, love the suit. Couldn't stop laughing at your bull maxing suggestion from the recent
Thanks,
live
brother.
stream. Multiple masks cause it's October is pure genius.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Get it, boys, if you're a real deal bull maxer. Yeah, everything that these women say, at least this one in the red, even women yearn for, where are all the good men? What happened to men? Do you know that women say, what happened to men? What do you think they mean when they say they want the old ways back? They want the chivalry. They want men to treat them with respect. They want men to get down when you get married. They want virtuous, strong men. What did feminism do? Feminism destroyed masculinity, made it so that masculinity is seen as something toxic, that there was something inherently wrong and defective with boys, so they had to be essentially medicated in school, and you put them on fucking Adderall. And then you made colleges very toxic and femme-centric, and then you came up with consent, and he's got to ask for consent every time he flips me into a new position. And then you can retroactively withdraw consent. So if you fucked a guy you didn't even like, you can then wake up the next day and go, oh, fuck, I made a mistake, and I don't want to be embarrassed, so I will just retract my consent somehow, like magic. Or if you're a woman and you drink alcohol, but a man does too, you can't be liable. You can't make your own decisions. Actually, he's at fault. He took advantage of you. You can't have this shit both ways. The society that we have created under feminist ideals has completely fucking failed. Do you know how? It doesn't even matter if they want to believe their own bullshit. Look at the population collapse. Look at the replenishment rate. Look at the birth rates. Look at them. Look at the marriage rates. Nobody's getting married. No one's having kids. 30% of Gen Z got aborted. Gen Z is aborting their children at a 50% rate. We found that out yesterday on the live stream. Our abortion, we've killed like 80 million people through abortions alone. Really? This is a win? This is progress for women's rights? Do you think the feminists, the first generation feminists that were fighting for actual equality in their eyes, for responsibility, the same access to consequences for their actions that men had. They want to be treated like adults in the room and not like children. You think those women would still be fighting for feminism today if it meant seeing boys chopping their dicks off, women chopping their breasts off, men wearing skirts going to women's bathrooms, men competing with women in sports? You think those feminists would be supporting the destruction of the nuclear families? Women pimping themselves out for OnlyFans for $5 a month? Or being some old man's sugar baby? Yeah, you think those feminists would still be fighting for this? Or they would just throw the fucking lock and key away and be like, you know what? No, we can't be trusted with any of this shit. If we had a glimpse into this future and that's true, this was like a premonition that they got during that time, they would have been like, nope, fuck that. Back in the kitchen, barefoot, pregnant, shut the fuck up. That is the nightmare future that we're staring down. Please, bro.
And that is the spaciousness and the freedom and the autonomy to do that. I love that women can choose that now. I love that women can say, I'm really happy single. This settling for someone who's not good enough for me, or it doesn't suit me, or it doesn't fit me, doesn't have to happen for me anymore. I can live my full self, and maybe my career is more important to me or fulfilling, or my friendships or my desire for travel. I love that we have options. I want the women watching this to appreciate all the options that they have. All the options that they have. If they want to be single, and they want to hook up, if they're looking, but in the meantime having that sexual freedom, I want them to have it all. But if what they want is this monogamy that you're talking about, to find the love of their life and settle down and have 2 children or whatever they want, I want them to have that too.
Deborah, can I ask, do you think that there is a cost to hookup culture and casual sex in regards to the implications it has on women, as Erica was implying, psychologically? And is that more adverse in women than men?
I think human beings can suffer from too much choice. Like we know.
She can't admit that it's women. Unbelievable, dude. Deflecting like crazy.
That if you put 800 varieties of jam out on a supermarket shelf, people will buy less jam than if you put out 8, because they get confused and they just think, oh God, I don't know, none of it then. And they walk away. I think.
But does it affect women worse?
The fact that we have young people sitting in a bar on a hinge date, and while that person goes to the bar, they're like, what else is out there? I think that's bad for human beings. Mm-hmm. I think that is bad for women, for men, for non-binary people. That's bad for everybody.
Oh,
but this sort of sacredness, Erica was alluding to a sacredness of sex itself.
Yes, I think that is not a thing, that we are somehow finding women find sex more sacred than men. I
didn't say that women find it. I think it's sacred for men and women, but
yeah. So you were speaking to sort of sacredness to it. And I know, Louise, in your work, you've talked about how there's different implications for men and women as it relates to casual sex.
So I think that hookup culture basically is better suited to the average preferences of men than of women. So the average preferences of men are more likely to be towards the having lots of partners, jumping into bed really quickly, into the spectrum, basically. And this is what psychologists call sociosexuality. So men are generally more unrestricted in their sociosexuality than are women. And hookup culture favors the highly sociosexual. And actually, you can see this if you look at campus dating cultures and sexual cultures, which are interesting because in a way, university campuses are almost a closed environment. You've got all these young, horny people hanging out, not very much to do, and like interacting with one another. And on campuses which have more men than women, so the women are the scarcer resource, basically, assuming everyone's heterosexual, right? They tend to have more conservative sexual cultures, so more monogamy, less hooking up, people wait longer to have sex, etc. On campuses where they're...
Yeah, because women don't win just having sex with random guys. It's a complete waste of fucking time for women. There's no... You can cope and say that's pleasurable all you fucking want, but there's nothing more pleasurable, and women report this, than having sex with the same partner that they're in love with, that they have an intimate bond with. Women don't like the variety on the sense or on the same scale as men do. It's absolute bullshit. Like a woman wants to lock a man down. A woman wants to, quote, tame the stallion. A woman that's out just hopping on different dicks on campus is low value woman. She literally doesn't like herself and she's failing at keeping a guy around long term. Like imagine spreading your clam and the guy pumps, dumps, ghosts. You get ghosted after your clammy got busted open. What does that say about you? Like imagine that. Imagine all the stuff that they cry about on TikTok, all the videos that we've seen. Is it me? What the fuck is wrong with men? Like every time I give them what they want, they disappear. Yeah, you were nothing. You're a piece of meat to the guy. You don't understand that? That you don't win at all in any circumstance playing this game? They have no idea, dude. They thought they can compete. You are not biologically designed to fuck so many people. Men are. We're disposable. Our bodies, we have no value inherently unless we create it out of thin air. A woman is valuable simply for having a uterus that she could give birth because that shit is, nature deemed it so it takes 9 months to have a baby, gestation, all that stuff. That's no joke. Taxing on the body. What is a man cooking off a fucking, what? One single jerk, boom, you can have hundreds of kids. That's nothing. It costs him nothing biologically. Shoot and scoot, pump and dump, keep it moving. So yes, of course, men can be replaced easily. They have no inherent value in that sense. That is why women choose and have the power for sex, but men choose commitment. So if you're a woman and your value is so low in the eyes of men, you will never get commitment from them. That's just the truth. They refuse to learn this, bro. I mean, fucking more times we have to restate this shit.
Isaac $5. Watch how quickly women's legs close the moment certain laws/actions are put in place that de-incentivizes this hedonism/degeneracy.
Thanks for the 5,
There
bro.
are fewer men and more women, which increasingly is true of all universities, actually,
60
because
to 40,
exactly, you have the opposite. You have more hookup culture because basically the men are the scarce resource and they can set the terms, and men prefer more hookup culture. There are obviously exceptions, this is all true, but at the population level, I think that's really good evidence that actually women en masse don't like hookup culture and are actually engaging with it because they sort of have to.
What you're talking about there is very young women who have just left home.
Bro.
It's their first exploration into sex. Now, if you ask a 32-year-old woman in London who knows...
If you ask a 32-year-old used up fucking sloozy, the city bicycle, she's been pumped and dumped by the whole crew and then some. If you ask her, who doesn't have any value for herself, who's fucking depressed and on fucking SSRIs, that woman, bro, if you ask her, does she like sex? She's gonna say, yeah. You can't use college women who are absolutely in their prime and fertile and highest, sexual need where their hormones are raging. No. You got to take a 32-year-old used up a fucking tube sock. What? All right, dude.
Hey America $20. Hey Bo, if you're familiar with Ali G's In the House movie, America may have to facilitate bringing foreign women to the US in order for America to continue. Of course with regs and rules. Or men will use passports or opt out.
I think that's what you're starting to see, passport or opting out. I think the only options for men are going to be probably these three. You opt out, you use a passport, or you got lucky and the fucking meal came to you. Right? You found a first-gen immigrant in America. That's your only choice. Somehow, we had this conversation in the private community about what a conservative woman is, and I hate to break it to you boys, but when you come to a real conservative culture, American conservatives seem liberal as fuck. Extremely liberal. Like the Overton window has shifted so far left that people don't understand what an American conservative is compared to a really heavily Christian country somewhere in the Balkans, for example. Yeah.
Her body, who knows her preferences, who knows what kind of man turns her on, who can talk about these things and communicate. And you ask her, do you regret that hookup? She'll be like, no, I worked really hard this week. I was literally looking forward to it, and it was wonderful. If you ask that same woman, do you regret any of the hookups you had when you were a fresher? She'll be like, oh my God, I didn't know myself. I didn't know how to ask what I wanted. The boys were terrible at it because they didn't know themselves. I don't think universities are a great place to get this information, because that is when you are literally just exploring and going, is this anything? And we're all too embarrassed to say what we want or to say how that we like, oh. So
This is crazy.
You've got to put into that mix. Boys are told, you got to get laid. You got to get laid. Otherwise, you're not cool. Young women are told, you don't want too high a body count. You're going to get slut shamed. So you're talking about 18-year-olds who don't know themselves yet, and you're saying when the men are scarce a resource, it's one way, women another way. That is exactly what I would expect to see.
You're talking about 18-year-olds that don't know themselves yet.
What we are currently experiencing in our sexual culture, where yes, there's some structure, yes, there are some rules, but we are much, much more sexually, not just liberal, but even libertine than, say, the sexual culture of our grandparents or whatever. I think everyone ought to be able to agree on that. There clearly is a change now in the sexual culture from previous generations, and it's mostly to do with the pill, as I argue. But the expectation is kind of, as you say, that you just have to figure it out. Like, there isn't a very clear template. Yes, maybe there isn't. I think that Deborah, you're actually right that most people do in the end aspire to monogamy and having children and everything. But there's also an expectation that you're supposed to experiment a bit in the meantime, and it's kind of actually weird to be a virgin on your wedding night. And I think that, yes, I mean, girls have to tread this really difficult tightrope where on the one hand they are at risk of slut shaming, but they're also at risk of being called frigid. They are much, much more at risk, actually, of being called frigid than in previous generations. And the idea that we can escape from social judgment around our sexual choices is probably not realistic. I think that basically that's what humans are like. We do just tend to be judgmental about this. But anyway, I don't think it's very wise to
Isaac, $10.
subject
I
girls to
subbed
this
to you for
experience, is how I
years
would
now
put it.
because I value your opinion, Bo. What would be your solutions to today's relationship issues? What would you implement to curb people's natural inclinations?
That's a good one. Oh, boy. Well, when you say implement, am I president? Implement. Are we talking socially, like shaming people into behaviors? Okay. As far as today's relationships go, the only way you're going to find a decent woman is on the individual level is self-awareness. And coupled with a sweet disposition. Now, I'm going to tell you that why. And I say this solves a lot of relationship issues for people because what happens for a man's point of view, you get in a relationship with a woman who, let's just say, doesn't have a sweet disposition. So she could be biting your fucking ear off constantly. She could be arguing with you all the time. She could be nagging you to death. That causes friction in the relationship. She has a very masculine quality to her versus very combative and adversarial. That's part one. Find a woman that has a true sweet disposition naturally. Okay. Second is the self-awareness, and how it works today is, does she actively avoid internet, social media, her phone? Does she have the self-awareness in action as she's picking up the phone and scrolling and going like, fuck it, look at all this slop? Who does she follow on social media? What accounts pop up in her For You page or her timeline? Watch these things. If your timeline is full of, for example, as a man, cars, bitches, and their titties bouncing up and down, stupid shit, that's absolute brain dead slop. Or you have other things that are more helpful. There's like dudes fixing a car. You're learning about geology, blah, 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 stuff about stocks and finances, right? Those are your core preferences. Like that's what you actively swipe on. So it's the same for a woman. You can actually find out a lot about what pops up on her page. If she's obsessed with superficial stuff or not. Is she a God-fearing woman? That's important to a lot of people. Does she serve something other than herself? Does she serve something greater than herself? You know, women have an inclination naturally to be greedy, to be selfish, for me, resource hogs, and preserve their value, right? Because this is what they're always fighting off, competition from other women. And they're on a clock. So what you really want to look for is a woman that has selfless nature in her. Now, when you combine even just these basic things that you could find in any great grandma from any fucking generation just 80 years ago, that's impossible today. It makes it so that the search seems like it's literally a unicorn. That's one of the main issues today that men are having. Decent options for a relationship. I didn't even mention marriage. I just said for a relationship hardly exist anymore. Okay. Now, when it comes to the second part of that is what would you implement to curb the natural inclinations? Well, if we're talking from a policy front, you have to get rid of the court biases for women. Children, when a divorce happens and there's a custody battle, it's automatically 50-50 unless one of either the man or the woman is crippled in some sense that they cannot take care of the kid, so the other one gets preference. Divvying up, let's just say, property, assets, income post-divorce, especially in a dual income household, shouldn't be a thing. You walk away with yours, she walks away with hers. Another one, which I've been a huge proponent of, and it caused a lot of people to go crazy. Men don't have biological reproductive rights. Meaning, you both have sex. It took two to tango. Once she gets pregnant, you lose all your rights. She decides to keep the child, and you will be on the hook for helping raise that child financially. The state will come take your paycheck, even though you don't consent, for example, to the child being born. So let's forget the abortion argument. I understand. But in the culture that we have today, let's just say you're in a state that has abortion implemented still. Now, if she wants to have the child in this context, and you don't, then you waive your rights as a parent, as the father, in perpetuity. You cannot at any point in time come back into that child's life, period, barred. And that's okay. So you waive your legal right to your kid if she chooses to have the child. If you choose to have the child and she doesn't, she gives birth to the kid, you take full custody, and she also waives all rights to the child. Okay? That is real equality. That's what feminism should have been fighting for. That's equality for the sexes, truly, right there. So that is reproductive equality. If you made it so that was true, there would no longer be all these accidental pregnancies or abortions for the most part anymore. This shit would come crashing down. Or all this casual hookup culture bullshit. No more. I guarantee you, we're removing the incentive. Okay? Another thing is, for marriage specifically, if you want to incentivize family creation, then you're going to actually incentivize marriage and children. So this has been done in the past by certain governments. If you get married, you will get access to a government loan with very low interest that will allow you to buy your first house. Every child you have gets you 25% off of your loan. One child, your loan is forgiven 25%. 2, 50. 3, 75. And at 4, your loan is completely forgiven. You have essentially made 2 people per parent that will become lifelong taxpayers into the system. The government should, instead of sending money to fucking foreign countries, instead of helping countries that don't help us, instead of funding stupid shit and spending money on slush funds and climate change and all this bullshit, we should be incentivizing with money our citizens to have children. Another incentive, if you don't want to do it that way, Taxes. If you have 6 or more children, maybe the primary breadwinner is now lifetime tax-free. Wouldn't that be nice? Think about that one. So there are many ways to incentivize this shit from policy and socially. But will that day ever come? I don't know. Are we going to have pro-natalist policies truly in this country one day? Maybe. Maybe when it's too late. That's typically when we like to do things. So another way to curb a natural inclination. I think those are probably the most important policies that I would enact. And then I would dissuade single motherhood. I would actually penalize single motherhood. You don't get tax breaks, you don't get government assistance, you get nothing. So I think if we stop government being big daddy and the man of the house, I think women will then stop with the single mother is strong, all this bullshit. The single motherhood rate would absolutely disappear over one generation if you stop incentivizing it with the state. Stop giving single mothers money. The only time you get money or a reprieve from taxes is if you stay married and have children. People would then stay married and have children because the economic benefits would far outweigh hookup culture and all this other stupid shit. There are no consequences for hookup culture right now. There are hardly any consequences for getting pregnant because daddy, big government will come save you. Then you could pin a man for financial support. There are many ways that a woman can still live her life, even though she's a single mother today. So yes, there are deadbeats. Yes, some guys don't take care. Yeah, some shit is like life is hard for some single mothers, but it still incentivizes a bunch of the wrong people having kids. So the whole point of these policies are to disincentivize these people. And Sean said, let's keep the government out of the housing market. No, that would be keeping the government out of the housing market because the housing market would only be available to families, essentially, in that sense, because families would be the only ones that would have housing allocated to them under that loan. Everybody else has to go to private institution. So there would be no more Blackstone buying up houses. There's no private equity. There are no luxury apartments that would be created because all the money would be funneled essentially into single family homes for starter families. Policy solves all these issues. And then the government would builders would then create single family homes because the demand is so high for all the new families that are constantly coming into the system that it would be backed by government. The pricing won't increase. You can have the government set limits on what the standard single family house looks like, size, what it needs, backyard, all that stuff, or don't. You can leave the states to decide that, and it's a federal fund that they all pool into. It's fine. It doesn't matter in that sense. But if you made it so that housing is only for families, at least single detached homes is for families, you wouldn't have a problem. We have an insane housing shortage because it's given out to corporations, because people are allowed to have 20, 30, 40, 50 homes and all this shit. That's what's broken. Look, these policies already worked in the past. They're proven. I just can't tell you who did it. A certain country in the 30s and 40s instituted that and turned around their entire economy. So, anyways. Yeah, I understand though the sort of disgust, that natural inclination to pull back when you say, don't let the government do anything. But this is another thing that I think we need to talk about. Government's not bad, you guys. We just have bad leaders. We have bad people in government. Government is the reason we got this big. Government's the reason all this shit works the way it does. Government's the reason our society is organized and safe in the manner that it is. It's just we have absolute failures of human beings that have climbed into the halls of power that now drive the machine that's driving us into the dirt. Government is good when it works. We're being told by oligarchs today that government's bad, privatize everything so that they can take away all our public assets and then make a ton of money off it while enslaving us and bringing in the whole you will own nothing and be happy government, like globalist world government. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking big government, I wouldn't say big government, but government in general is bad. Government is not bad. The people running the government have broken it, and therefore it became bad. And they want to break it so much so that they can privatize it, huge pieces of it, so that them and their fucking rich friends can make money off of it. One of the ones that people don't say is bad at all is the Postal Service. Dude, the United States Postal Service is like a fucking miracle. No other country on earth has like a postal service as incredible as the United States has. Through rain, sleet, or snow, postman's always there. Never misses. That's a government creation. That's government run. And what have they done? They've constantly cut, at least Republicans have, and gutted the budget for the post office, gutted their ability to function and properly operate. And they want to gut them so bad that they want to then privatize it. Now, why would you want to privatize something that worked so fucking well, that was literally revolutionary when it started? People were still getting fucking mail with fucking horses, mules, shit like that in certain parts of the country. Now you have the postman coming through, no matter the weather, on time, every time. That's an example of government working properly. People have forgotten that because our institutions are rotten. We have the worst government we've ever had. When we're polled, we have the lowest confidence or approval rating in our governments that we've ever had. Look at the Congress approval ratings. Presidential approval ratings started to slip. He's not doing what he's supposed to. The Senate approval ratings, garbage. Same thing with the Supreme Court. The approval ratings, garbage. From the local to the state to the federal, people are not happy with their government. Our society is backsliding, and it is because of ineffective leadership. It's not the government. I don't blame the government. We need government. Absolutely. In order for this giant-ass country, the United States, to function, in any country of this size, you need state. That's what Europeans formed, is the state. So to argue against that, it's absolutely insane. We have to see what's really going on here. And that is, we have to get people that really do believe in the country, real fucking patriots, real people that are America first, real people that want to help real fucking citizens of this country, and not piece of shit globalists, not fucking special interests bought by fucking Miriam Adelson or whoever else donated 100 mil here, 200 mil there, super PAC here, sellout motherfuckers. None of those. We don't need those. We need regular, true blue America running America. Get those Americans in there. I guarantee you shit will start working. Shit will start working real quick. But we have nothing but leeches in office. And they take our tax money and they fucking essentially enrich themselves with all our tax money. NGOs are an absolute money laundering operation. They're all fucking fake. It's all a slush fund that they pay themselves. They appoint themselves and their family and friends to the heads of these organizations, or the board membership level. They're put on the board. And so then they get rights, or I wouldn't say rights. They then get access to, say, a slush fund. For example, we could create an NGO called Legion of Men. This NGO is to help all men in the entire world. And let's just say we had some sort of power where Trump gave us $100 billion for our slush fund, the Legion of Men NGO. And this NGO propagates positive masculinity in the modern world. And then I appoint myself head of board, and I appoint every one of you here deputies and mid-level management, and I give you all hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in salary, and I'll pay the board millions of dollars, and we have this $100 million or billion dollar, whatever the fuck the numbers, say $100 million slush fund to play with from taxpayer money. And it's an NGO. You understand the game here and how it works? Why do you think all these politicians enrich themselves so quickly? Shit is crazy, man. All right. I think we'll call it, boys. We're already 2 hours in. I think we did an hour and a half of video. We'll finish with these feminist debates if we have it in us Tomorrow we're due same thing, same time, more episodes. And if you have episodes that you want to send me, please do over on email. Not just videos, but send me topics, stories that are interesting. I like to do research on this. I've spent literally all day looking up all the information for the ones we just covered today. And if you haven't, go get some hats, go get some shirts, be a gangster, support the channel, peep it, okay? It is legionofmen-shop.fourthwall.com. Links are always in the description of every single video you watch. And if you haven't, check it out. Hats are dope. Fits good. Haven't had a problem. I went hiking in this hat. It's not breaking down. It's not looking like shit. Stitching is A1. And it supports the channel directly. So if you haven't, join us on the private community. Hang out with me on the calls, dude. We discuss topics like this all the time, stuff about men. And who knows? You might have some wisdom to learn, or maybe teach us a thing or two. Maybe you have some interesting life situation we could all benefit from. It'd be nice to have you. Anyways, for everybody else, appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate everybody that's been getting the apparel, everybody in the private community. And we started the public community, by the way. It's free to join. Check it out. It's pinned in the comment section if you haven't. And I'd love to see you on there too, guys, to build up that community. So thank you so much for tuning in, boys. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, Monday through Friday. Take care of yourselves.